Hello everyone, my name is Christopher Liam Rose. I'm an author, mentor, life coach, motivational speaker, evangelist, musician, and activist. In this audio and in this podcast, I'm going to be sharing a message. I've been sharing the Spiritually Helping Other People podcast to inspire humanity to go through a spiritual change, to learn about Jesus Christ, Jehovah Buddha, to learn about the no self and selflessness, and to help other people, help humanity, and help the universe. Now, in this message, in this audio and podcast, we're going to be talking about the spiritual light. Now, each human being has a spiritual light inside of them, right? And it's important that we find that in our lives. The spiritual light is who you really are as a human being, your gifts, your talents, your skills, your abilities, right, and your characteristics and behavior. Now, it's important to realize that the spiritual light has to be discovered within your life in order to help other people, help the animals, and help the universe. If you don't find the spiritual light within yourself, you can't do the work of helping other people, giving back, and making a difference. So the spiritual light is so important, and even if you've gone through trauma, suffering, pain, adversities, and challenges within your life, you still have a spiritual light inside of you because the light is within you. So it's important to find it and it's important to discover it. So what we need to do is basically go for a spiritual change. If we go for a spiritual change, then we can discover the spiritual light within ourselves. So what is a spiritual change? Spiritual change is when you transform yourself from the self to the no self, and you go for a spiritual awakening and a spiritual change within your psyche and psychological mind. The light that is within you is very important to discover and find, and all human beings have a spiritual light inside of them. The spiritual light shows your inspiration, your motivation, your care, your compassion, your empathy, your love towards others. It shows, who you are as a human being, the real essence of who you are. And it shows just the importance of what Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and Buddha has done in your life. So to go for a spiritual change, you must do the 5 spiritual practices: prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, and journaling. If you do the 5 spiritual practices, you go through a process of spiritual change. When you go through a process of spiritual change, you spiritually change the psyche and the psychological mind. If your psyche and your psychological mind changes, then your thinking and thoughts change. And if your thinking and thoughts change, then your actions, beliefs, morals, and values and results will change. So it's so important to find the spiritual light within yourself. Once you find the spiritual light within yourself, it's very important to do the 5 levels of helping other people. Level 1, volunteering. Level 2, jobs, careers, employment. Level 3, business, entrepreneurship. Level 4, level 4, faith and spiritual. And then level 5, spiritually helping other people who helping other people. Now, the light that is in you needs to be discovered. So you have to find the spiritual light within yourself. And finding the spiritual light within yourself takes time. This is a journey of life. It's a journey of a process, right? So don't rush the spiritual awakening. Don't rush the spiritual calling. And don't rush the spiritual life purpose. Take your time. Learn about yourself, discover yourself, understand yourself, your successes, your failures, your mistakes, your past, your trauma, your challenges, your difficulties, your suffering, your pains and adversities. Learn about that in your life, understand who you are as a human being, and learn about your life experiences. When you go through a spiritual change, you discover the no self and selflessness. And the no self and selflessness is a spiritual change and a spiritual awakening. When you discover the no self and selflessness, you discover know thyself, which basically means you know yourself as a human being. You know your life experiences, you know your challenges and your difficulties, and you know where you're going in the future. So the light that is in yourself, the spiritual light, is what we call freedom from the known. Freedom from the known means you already know what's going to be happening in the past, the present, the future. And your life is no longer focused on you, it's focused on others, giving back, making a difference, making a contribution, helping the animals, helping the universe, and helping the Lord God's creation in some way. So it's so important, again, to find that spiritual light. Now, the spiritual light helps you to really do the work of helping others, giving back, and making a difference. And each human being has a spiritual light inside of them, and it's very important to discover, and it's very important to find. I've always recommended to people that listen to my content, my videos, and my books, that going through a spiritual change is a very difficult process, because you change yourself as a human being. But if you're willing to go on the journey, and you're willing to find what's really important to you in life, what you really find valuable and meaningful, and what you really want to do in life, and your spiritual calling and spiritual life purpose, then you must find the spiritual light within yourself. Now, a lot of people say, when you've gone through suffering, pain, and adversity and trauma, how do you find the spiritual light? Now, this is when prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, journaling comes into it, the 5 spiritual practices. Because when you do the 5 spiritual practices, you're changing your thinking habits, and you're changing your psyche and your psychological mind. So a lot of people find spiritual enlightenment from going through a spiritual change. And spiritual enlightenment is basically freedom from suffering, pain, and adversity. So you can have a difficult past, or challenging past, or things that have really upset you, disappointments that you've had, struggles that you've had. But when you go through a spiritual awakening and a spiritual change, you can find spiritual enlightenment. And spiritual enlightenment means freedom from suffering, pain, and adversity. Basically, the end of suffering, pain, and adversity. And I think in life, that's what all human beings are trying to get to. All human beings are trying to find the spiritual light within themselves, how to overcome their suffering, pains, and adversities, and how to live a more joyful, happier, fulfilling, rewarding life, and meaningful life. So it's very important that you go through a spiritual change, and Jesus Christ, Jehovah, and Buddha want you to go through a spiritual change. Without the spiritual change, you can't find the spiritual light, and the spiritual light is who you really are as a human being. It's your real essence of who you are, your personality, your characteristics, your mentality, your behavior, your skills, your abilities, and your talents. So it's so important to find the spiritual light. And in life, this is what we all need to do. So I actually encourage the listeners who are listening, make sure you find the spiritual light within yourself. Go through the spiritual change of prayer, meditation, mindfulness, walking, and journaling, the 5 spiritual practices. Do the 5 levels of helping other people. Level 1, volunteering. Level 2, jobs, careers, employment. Level 3, business, entrepreneurship. Level 4, faith and spiritual. Level 5, spiritually helping other people. You help other people. And then when you find the spiritual light within yourself, you'll be free from suffering, pain, and adversity, and it'll be the end of suffering, pain, and adversity. And then you'll be able to live your life the way you want to live your life, make spiritual contributions to helping others, helping humanity, helping the universe, and really leaving your spiritual legacy now on earth while you're still alive. So I hope you find the spiritual light within yourself. I hope this has really encouraged you to go on the journey of spiritual enlightenment, spiritual awakening, and spiritual transformation and spiritual change. And I hope through the podcast and through the audio you learnt something new. So thank you for listening now. Have a good day. Take care now. Bye now.